And good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Pattison Ave Phanatics Show. I'm your host, James Scorzit, and with me, as always, is the group of companions on this very, on this very, guess you could say busy Saturday. Joey Marks, what's going on, my friend?
What is going on, everybody in Philadelphia?
Frank Finnegan.
Good morning, fellas, and good morning, the people into the ether.
Yeah.
Guys, I gotta step out for just 1 second. My dog is scratching the back door.
Yep, no
Okay.
problem. Yeah, we got a lot to get to on this very busy Saturday morning. Phillies, after last week, basically, went on a tear. They've been winning the last 8 out of the last 9 games, I guess you could say. Eagles Ravens tonight, preseason opener for the Eagles, trying to see what they have in store for the upcoming 2023 season. But Joey, you're always the man of the hour, man. Where do we begin on this hopefully beautiful Saturday of must see action?
We're gonna start with your Philadelphia Phillies, and I gotta say, it's been a nice week to be a Philadelphia Phillies fan.
Yes, it is.
In so many ways. And there's so many things to unpack about this team and this week. And the first question I'm going to ask you, James, is we talk about how things have changed in a week. So I'll ask you, because last week there were a lot of people, including Frank, that were very skeptical of this team and what the success could be in this team.
Yep.
Do you believe that your opinion has changed about that since last week, seeing what you've seen this week?
Yeah, I think it has. I mean, the last week has showed me after the last time we talked to each other was when Trey Turner got that standing ovation that whole weekend, and basically I think I got to admit that started to roll with that whole thing because like there's so many things that happened in the last week or so. It's hard to believe that the team after that standing ovation. I gotta give a lot of props to 94 WIP's Jack Fritz, who made this idea up about giving Trey Turner the standing ovation. So I gotta tip my cap to you for that most than anything. But yeah, it's been really fun to see about what this Phillies team has done the last week or so. And hopefully it continues to go. I mean, they got hot at the right time around this time last year, and let's see we all know what happened last year around this time too. So probably
Yeah.
deja vu all over again.
Last night,
I have a statement to make.
I'm waiting for this.
Well, Trey Turner was on the verge of being. This is Snickers, by the way. Trey Turner was on the verge of being Lance Parrished in this town.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, very close to it. And I mean, he had a dismal performance on the road before he came home. And
Right.
Jack Fritz did something. And what's amazing to me is that, any argument about Philadelphia fans being, thugs and cavemen and, the worst people in the world just went right down the drain because we did something very un-Philadelphian. We stood and cheered for a guy who did not deserve to be cheered for, who's having probably the worst year of his career, and said to him in mass, "We believe in you and we need you."
Right.
How did he respond? 9-game hitting streak, probably hitting somewhere in the area of 380.
Right.
He won us, I think, 3 games in this stretch.
Yep.
With game-winning hits.
He's batting .412 in the 9 games. .412.
Okay, there you go. .412 in the 9 games. This is, to me, it's a real tribute to the Philadelphia fans that we stood up and did this. And Joe, my skepticism was valid.
I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm almost, but I will ask you this, because my first question was basically in the vein of, since last week when we kind of diagnosed everything, things have definitely taken a change. Has your opinion stayed the same?
What about the Phillies prospects for the rest of the season?
Yes, and for the playoffs.
No.
Okay.
Well, as I said then, and I couched it by saying if they continue to play the way they were playing at the time, that they were not going to have success, and that was obvious. What has changed is they picked up a pitcher that nobody knew was that good, and Trey Turner woke up. And because Trey Turner woke up, it has had a downstream effect on the rest of the lineup. That he's made everything pop now. And I mean, home runs are flying out of the park like crazy, and we've been waiting all year for this team to start hitting home runs because they were way behind in that category.
So I will give you a moment. I will give you a moment to rescind or evaluate what you had said. You said last week that, and I'll agree with you. You couched it, you hedged, and you basically said if they continue to play the way that they are not getting out of the first round.
Right. And I mean, come on, Joe. I mean, look at the way they were playing.
No, I agree. I'm not arguing with you on that.
Yeah.
What I'm asking is, now you've seen this week, do you still think this team can't get out of the first round?
No. And the reason I say that they will get out of the first round is their pitching. Their starting pitching looks. I mean, if I was an opposing team, it looks ugly. Because they're really pitching well. If they can we get Alvarado back, and I think he starts his rehab assignment on Monday. Getting Alvarado back is big.
That's still going to be a ways. I mean, he starts Monday, but he's supposed to throw 3 or 4
he's throwing
sessions,
bullpens,
and then they have to reevaluate it.
Right. But the projection is he'll be back by the end of next week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I'm good with whatever that is. I mean, because when he started his last little rehab start before, he got a little bit of tightness or soreness. So they just want to make sure he's right before October, and I don't.
Well, they're gonna need him for the stretch. They're definitely gonna need him for the stretch.
So
and I got to tell you, Joe, now the Phillies, they're beating up on bad teams right now. Okay, which is what they should do.
Frank,
come on, Joe. Joe, come on,
don't
Joe.
do that. They just beat the number 1 team in the AL Central.
Really? What's their record, Joe?
That I'm just telling you,
Joe. It's the AL Central.
I'm just spewing facts. You're telling me they're beating bad teams. This is a playoff team.
Who are the two teams? Who are the 2 teams that they played before that? Were they good teams? Are they good teams?
Are they good teams? No, they're both last place.
Okay. What I'm saying, Joe, is they're beating the teams that they're.
Frank,
Let me finish. They're beating teams they're supposed to beat. Okay, the Twins are not a great team. They're in first place only because of the division they're in. And until this team comes up and beats teams that are equally matched with them, you're going to have a problem with believing that they're ready for the prime time in October. I'm sorry, Joe, but that's just the truth. I can't walk around with blinders on.
I'm going to spew the truth. They beat the Orioles in the series. They beat the Rays in the series. Are you going to tell me those are phantom wins? The Orioles are the best team in the AL.
No. Look, they're not phantom wins. I'm not saying they're phantom wins, but they have to continue to do that.
They're beating bad teams, and they're not beating good teams.
This week.
Right. They only had bad teams this week. What did you expect?
Yeah,
but Joe, what kind of and force their way into Camden Yards?
What kind of road trip did they have before they came home? They were not playing well on the road.
They were playing as well as could be expected for a 10 or 11 game road trip.
Okay.
I mean, here's my.
Would you agree that they didn't play well on the road? Yes or no? This last
season
trip, this last trip, were they playing well on the road? Was there anything to be encouraged about, especially the way Turner was botching balls and the way they gave up a couple games on the road? It didn't look promising, Joe.
Because they beat the Marlins, who, if the old Phillies would have let the Marlins jump.
This isn't the old Phillies. We're talking about today. We're talking about today, Joe. We're talking about what happened last week.
You're asking me a question.
Not relevant.
I'm answering.
That's not a relevant answer.
But it is. You said
no. It's not.
You asked for my opinion. My opinion is you asked me, do I feel like last road trip did that have any glimmer of success? And the answer that I have is yes, because it put more distance between us and the people that are behind us in the wild card.
Okay.
I mean, that's a fact.
I wasn't when they came off that last road trip. I was like, they're treading water. That's all I could. That's all, the only.
They gained 2 games in the wild card race, Frank. In that road trip.
They gained 2 games. Yes, they did, but they didn't look like world beaters, Joe. They didn't look like the team that we were promised.
How you look like world beaters if you're a wild card team? You don't look like world beaters unless you're a division.
Joe, they
leader.
don't. They are not playing like the team that was promised to us at the beginning of the year. You can't argue that.
They are now.
You can't argue that. Okay, they are now.
Right, and you're asking about now.
You're referring to past Marlins series. Okay, I'm talking about now. Right?
You asked about the last road trip. They played the Marlins in the last road trip.
Okay, but what was the record on the last road trip?
It was still a winning record.
Well, did they not lose games they should have won on that road trip?
I'm just not disagreeing with that. But they also won games they should have won.
But I mean, you can't, Joe. You couldn't have come off that last road trip thinking, "Yeah, we got this," because that's not what it was. That's not the attitude.
I thought that way for a couple of reasons. Number one, they were coming home for a 10-game homestand.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying.
That was something big. Number two, like I said earlier, the Phillies, despite that road trip, however you want to paint it, they gained 2 games in the wild card, which they absolutely desperately need every game they gain in the wild card, because there's like a 5-team race in the wild card. You could go on a 4-game losing streak and be out of the playoff race. So the Phillies made hay when they needed to. Did they have really ugly series on the road trip? Yeah, but if your microcosm of a analytical statement is that they have suffered bad losses on the road trip, and they've also suffered bad losses at home in the last 15, 16 games, then the answer is yes, they have. But have they also succeeded? Yes, because they've gained ground.
But Joe, my point was they were not playing as a team at the time that looked like they were equipped to succeed in October. And that was just painfully evident. So their defense sucks, their base running sucks, and it didn't look like a team.
What do you think now? Because here's the thing.
I think they're putting it together. Okay, now
give me a definitive statement. Where do you see this team ending up?
Well, Joe, given the talent that they have, they should go deep into the playoffs. I mean, at the beginning of the season, I predicted them walking away with this division. Who the hell knew that the Braves were going to be at 30 games over 500? But now the Braves have some, they're having some problems. Their pitching is a disaster, and it's starting to catch up with them because their bats aren't going to be able to carry them all the way. Now, are the Phillies going to overcome them? No, but the Braves are going to limp into the end of September. Okay, which may be a good thing for the Phillies.
Despite that, if you want to go and see a good Phillies game or go and see any of the upcoming Eagles games, go and check out a great sponsor of ours, right, James?
Yes, sir. It's called Sherry'sTickets.com. You can save 10% by using the promo code EOP10 for great prices, no hidden fees for sports, concert, and theater. Visit our website online today at www.sherry'stickets.com. That place was, family owned and operated since 1946. That's again www.sherry'stickets.com, and tell them that the boys over at Pattison Ave and EOP sent you.
Look, I'm going to be real definitive with my statement. Real definitive.
Shocking. You're never definitive, Joe. You're never definitive.
This is going to make it as crystal clear where I am not hedging. I am not, giving a backdoor for me to be, right, even if I'm wrong. The Philadelphia Phillies of this season will make it back to the World Series. That's what I feel. And that's from what I have seen lately. And I can tell you why. We had said this. I had said this last week, but we had all said this. If Trey Turner figures it out, if Bryce Harper plays like even in the shadow of a Bryce Harper, he's not going to be his old self anytime, in this season.
Yeah, I don't think his power is going to come back this year.
Not this season, but I'll take a 50% Bryce Harper over 100% any other guy.
Yeah. I think his power will be a little bit back by the end of the year, but it's not like it was last year.
Castellanos
has been incredible.
Is smashing the ball. Man. Schwarber is starting to just, jump out the yard. The daycare's still doing their thing. And
by the way, a fantastic job too.
Oh, and by the way, Dave Dombrowski did it again. This guy, I want to go, and I think him and Howie Roseman should hold like a seminar for Daryl Morey and Danny Briere and say, this is how you general manage, folks. This is what you do. Because you pull diamonds to make diamonds. Like you pull a diamond to make diamonds. So Michael Lorenzen was deemed not a starting pitcher by many coaches that he played under. He was out of the bullpen. He even played the field. He played center field.
Yeah.
Michael Lorenzen.
Not a bad hitter. No.
Michael Lorenzen was traded to this team in one of the trade deadline deals for really nothing. Mm-hmm. And this gentleman in his first outing went 8 strong innings.
Yeah, he did.
His second outing, his home debut at the bank, he cashed in. He cashed in on the bank, and he pitched the 14th no-hit game in Philadelphia Phillies history. Listen, I don't care what you want to say. That guy proved the doubters wrong. And he's a guy with that kind of ethic that you can get behind.
Did you hear what he said about why?
I've heard. We're going to break that down because I love what he said. The other thing that Dave Dombrowski has done is brought up youth that we didn't know who they were, but because Frank, how many times did we sit on this show and criticize the farm system?
Oh my God! Well, with good reason.
Well, I understand. No, I understand. I'm just asking. So, how many times did we do it? So this kid, Weston Wilson, comes up to his first major league at bat, and he didn't just get a little bit of the ball; he crushed it for over 400 feet. This kid has waited.
Well,
he's 28.
The funny part is he's not a kid. He's not a kid.
No, I know. I'm calling him a kid. I'm like, he's 28. He's like, but he's a kid because he's considered a rookie. But the thing is that this kid came up and he has been bounced around all minor league systems. I mean, I think I counted about 8 different teams that he's been bounced around at. This kid finally gets an opportunity in the majors, and he doesn't waste time. He's like, wasting time's for fools. I wasted enough time. I'm 28. I'm old in baseball years. So he goes, I'm going to make a statement. And boy, did he. Crushing a solo home run in his first major league at bat. something that hasn't been done since Marlon Anderson.
Wow.
It's
Who
just
wasn't
amazing.
known for his power.
Well, no, but I mean, here's the thing, Frank. We're gonna go into Michael Lorenzen, and we'll rally back to Mr. Wilson. But what Michael Lorenzen said at both the end of the game and kind of in interviews after, what stood out to you the most?
What stood out to me? What
Yeah.
stood out to me was how the Phillies pitching coach went back. He said, you know, I haven't been able to throw my changeup for the last couple of years. He said I couldn't figure out why. And he said the pitching coach goes back and look at my film from a couple of years ago and said your grip is different. He changed his grip and he says I have my changeup back for the first time in years. And that's what happened. I mean, it was a really, really simple fix by the Phillies pitching coach who's happy to see something.
FYI,
like
the last pitch that he threw in the no-hitter was a changeup.
Kind of like what happened with Marsh. You know, Marsh left Texas because they had him all screwed up with his batting stance and his swing angle and all that. He comes here, and you know
LA.
what we were hoping for when he comes here, and what we were hoping for was a center fielder who could hit 240. Okay, well he's better than that, you know, and that was the Phillies hitting instructor that fixed that, you know. I mean,
let's talk about center fielders, Frank.
Yeah,
Johan Rojas.
The new Gary Maddox.
Listen. Can that guy catch everything that gets hit into the outfield? I mean,
it is amazing.
You know what he's going to wind up doing? You know what he's going to wind up doing, Joe? He's going to make Marsh a Gold Glove left fielder. That's what he's going to wind up doing.
Yeah.
That's what he's going to wind up doing. He's going to make Marsh a Gold Glove left fielder.
I mean, think about it. If you have Rojas and Marsh and Castellanos in your outfield, whew, that's pretty sturdy outfield, man.
Yeah.
See now you're flipping a rock because you don't think that Harper's going to stay at first, do you?
No, I don't. I don't.
Okay, so what do you do with Castellanos? Because Harper's going back to right field.
Well, you always have the DH, but then you can alternate them, can't you? Like Castellanos for DH and Harper. Well, then you have Schwarber.
But then what do you do with Schwarber?
Yeah.
You know,
listen, it's a good problem to have.
And it's not going to happen until the offseason, but one of those guys is going to have to go.
Right,
one of those guys is going to have to go.
It's a good problem. I'd rather have that problem than any other alternative problem. I'd rather have the idea.
I mean, and then also you're going to be presented with the problem, you know, when Reese comes back next year. Do you sign him? Do you sign Reese? You know,
well,
do you...
here's a question for you. And speaking of people to resign, Michael Lorenzen throws the 14th no-hitter. This guy was coming in as a 6th. I want to say this again. 6th pitcher in the rotation. Your 6th pitcher in the rotation throws a no-hitter? You're 6th.
Well, he was an all-star.
What? No, I get it, but still, it is what it is. He's the 6th. But did that just give Aaron Nola his walking papers?
No. No.
Ooh, really? I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Why not?
They're gonna get Aaron Nola on the cheap. Okay. Aaron Nola's not going to get. He's not going to get his $30 million a year contract. Okay. He pissed that away this year, pitching the way he did. What Aaron Nola's going to wind up getting from the Phillies, and he's probably not going to get any better anywhere else, unless some team just is ridiculous and gives him an incredible contract.
There are ridiculous teams out there.
Yeah, he's going to wind up getting like $110 million for a 5-year contract. You know,
here's the thing.
And here's a shocker for you. You know what Michael Lorenzen did? Michael Lorenzen pitching away he did, and if he continues the rest of the season this way, is going to put Ranger back in the bullpen when we need him. He's going to put a left-handed arm in the bullpen in the postseason that will be deadly, absolutely deadly, because now you'll have left-handed options in there that you didn't have before, and we all know Ranger can pitch out of the bullpen, and that's what he's going to wind up doing. And I know some people will go, "Well, you should leave Ranger as a starter." Yeah, Ranger's earned that, but Ranger in that role is deadly effective.
That's a great point. I mean, we talked about it last week about the possibility of Nola going into the bullpen, but that's a great
he'd be awful
point.
in the bullpen. He'd be awful in the bullpen.
But it's not even that, Frank. But you bring up a really good point. Is Ranger came from the bullpen, so he already has that understanding of what his objectives are, how to kind of treat his body. And like Michael Lorenzen, when he was interviewed before he even pitched, when he first got to Philly, he said something that was very interesting, because this is a guy that came from the bullpen and wanted to be a starter, so he made that transition. Well, he was explaining to Tom McCarthy and John Kruk, he was saying, like being a bullpen guy, you have to have a different mental approach to the game. When you're a starter, it's a little different. It's not as intensive. You get more sleep, because unlike when you're in the bullpen, you could be working 2 or 3 days in a row. So you're not sleeping for 3 or 4 nights. And so, like, he was explaining that very well. Now, for Aaron Nola, who's never been in the bullpen, that mindset would be completely foreign to him. But Ranger, however, has been there. It wouldn't be foreign to him. That's a really good point. I think more importantly,
more important the fact that Ranger has been in the bullpen before is that he's a very effective left-handed pitcher.
Yes.
And hey, Dave, how you doing?
How you doing, Dave?
Adding Suarez to a bullpen with what they have in there right now, in the playoffs would be merciless.
Mm-hmm.
It really would.
We talked about it last season, Frank. We said it, and I think we hammered it to death. The Phillies lost the World Series because they didn't have enough arms.
They didn't have enough arms.
Yep. Yeah, and so, James, I'll ask you. Mm-hmm. You think the Phillies now, with the bullpen and the starting pitching, going up against any team, you think they have enough arms? Let's not worry about the offense yet. Let's just worry about the arms. Do you think they have enough arms?
It's kind of interesting when you really think about it. Well, I mean, it depends on like what the starting pitching does, but I think other than Nola, who like Damon will talk about, his nimble and like has become like the center of the center of his pitching. But if I really had to say that if they have enough arms, yeah, I would think so. Maybe when Alvarado comes back, I think it'll be good to have him come back and nurse down the bullpen just a little bit. I mean, right now they're kind of like trying to see who they'll have for the 7th and 8th, and not. I mean, obviously you got Kimbrel in the 9th. So yeah, I mean, Hoffman is not necessarily lining it up. I mean, probably when Brogdon comes back, maybe too, but I haven't seen enough out of Brogdon.
Yeah, see, here's my feeling about Brogdon. I think he's going to be too late to the show. I think
that's what I think too. Yeah,
and I think he's going to be like, the show's already started. You can take a seat outside.
Yeah, but you know where Brogdon's going to come in really handy. He's going to come in here, and Hoffman the same way.
Sure.
They're going to use him. They're going to use those two guys in fill games.
Yep.
That will give the main guys in the bullpen the time off that they need. Like the Phillies will be up like 6-7 runs in a game, and they'll bring in Hoffman. They'll bring in Brogdon,
right.
and take those innings away from Alvarado and from Kimbrel and Soto, so that they're more ready for the postseason. And Joe, to answer your question, I think the Phillies definitely have the arms to do it this year. They definitely have the arms. Yeah, and I mean that's going to be Atlanta's downfall again. They don't have the arms.
Yeah,
and when you get into the playoffs, your flaws become magnified.
Well, and we talked about that with the Houston series. Is that me and Frank, we basically put our head in our hands, going, we know what this is going to look like. Like we know what this is going to happen because we've seen the Astros roll out one good arm after the other good arm, and
they had 10 good arms in the bullpen. They had 10 good arms in that pitching staff.
Like me and Frank are like, just give us one bad guy, and we'll
they didn't have one.
Like
they didn't have one.
And so like that was the problem. And I think with Atlanta, like you're saying, Frank, they're too dependent on their starting pitching. Their starting pitching has to go 6 or 7 strong in order to give their bullpen a chance. If their bullpen comes in and the starting pitcher is only gone 4 or 5 and has struggled and the team is down, I don't think they got. That's where they really lose games. When they have to rely on their bullpen.
That's fine. That's fine to do that in the regular season. But you go into the playoff situation, you can't rely on that.
No, you can't.
You're gonna wind up getting beat. And
I'll keep something else in mind when you say that too, Frank. Last playoff against Atlanta, remember, strikeout Strider. He looked like he was proclaimed to be like the strikeout machine, and he was going to shut the Phillies down, and he didn't. He did not.
I don't think he lasted I don't think he lasted like how many innings did he last?
He didn't last more than 3 innings.
Yeah,
it was like Dallas Keuchel last night. Like he didn't get out of the second inning.
I mean, once you rock him, then that pitcher's on a rocking chair trying to get back into the form in order to make, some inroads. And Keuchel last night was proof of that. Keuchel is a guy that he's a finesse pitcher. And he used to be a power pitcher, but now he's a finesse pitcher. Sometimes, it's amazing to me that I feel like some power pitchers, when they start to lose some gas in their pitches, they sometimes don't know how to make the transition to be a finesse guy. They don't know how to pinpoint things. And I think if you learn how to pinpoint your pitches first and then work on the power second, I think you almost do the pitcher a favor. Now, I want a disclaimer about things, folks, because I got a lot of tweets and a lot of messages the last week. I was not at first base. I was not playing umpire at first base, okay? During this homestand, I was not there. That was not me. Liar. I did not make those horrible calls. It was not me. But
well, I'll tell you what, Joe.
I got so many texts. So what am I going to do, James, if I need to be represented for all these defamation suits? Who can represent me?
Yeah, that's a good segue.
There you go.
It's a David R. Cherry, Esquire, workers' compensation, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, and criminal law, and all that things in between that Joey said. Give him a call at 610-565-0300. Again, the number is 610-565-0300. And visit the website, www.cherryinjurylaw.com. And tell them that the boys over at Pattison Ave and EOP and maybe Joey that sent you too.
Yeah, I mean,
I saw like, Joe. You can't lie. I saw the white cane sticking out of your pocket at first base. I saw it. You should have left that. You should have left that in the dugout.
What do you think tripped Castellanos? I'm like, that's the thing is when he tripped, I'm like, see, now I'm going to get blamed for this. And then when he missed both calls, I'd never seen. I mean, they haven't had review for very long in Major League Baseball, but I've never seen 2 straight reviews and 2 straight plays that both were overturned. I was like, maybe that guy should stop making calls altogether. Maybe he should just say,
I think, safe. I don't know what has happened to the umpires in baseball, because when I was a kid, those guys, there'd be a bad call occasionally, and you might bellyache about a guy's strike zone, but these guys are horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, this generation of umpires, no, they're terrible. They're absolutely terrible.
This isn't an official sponsor of VOP, but if the umpires need help with fixing or correcting their vision, I got a great team over at Will's Eye Hospital. They're not an official sponsor of the Edge of Philly Sports, but I got a great team I can recommend them to at Will's Eye Hospital if they need to get their eyes checked. And I've said that to them plenty of times when I've gone to any sporting events. If the refs need help with their sight, I'm willing to help them out. I'm willing to hook them up with
Coach
the best
Jeffers
doctors
needs to go to Will's Eye Hospital after that holding call.
You'll get thrown out of the game for statements like that, Joe.
That's where I put my glasses and my cane on and I go, you wouldn't hit a blind man, would you?
Joe,
that's
skepticism of last week. You can't say that it wasn't valid. That you can't say that this team was playing the way this team played last year. I mean, that up until 2 weeks ago, they were flirting with the 500 level. Up until three weeks ago, they were flirting with 500, and they've been playing very good baseball. But they're very manic. This team drives you crazy because they'll look great for 5 or 6 games, and then all of a sudden, this weasel pops up, and it's like, what is this? They'll botch games. It's not something that leads to confidence. Okay. Now, right now, I wouldn't want to have to play the Phillies if I was another team. I really wouldn't, because it looks like for the first time this whole season that everybody's bats are on the same page, because everybody's hitting home runs. I mean, right now, if you're a pitcher for the Phillies against the Phillies, you can't just go, okay, we can concentrate on these 2 guys. Once we get past these 2 guys, we're good. It ain't gonna work that way now, because everybody's
I don't know
hitting.
who's pitching for the Twins tonight, but whoever it is probably trying to call out sick. I'm almost certain of that.
The guy they have to worry about is tomorrow's pitcher, Gray. He's solid. He's a solid starter.
Yeah, he's a good pitcher.
They should win. They should win tonight. They should win tonight. But Joe, that speaks to my point. When Atlanta gets to the playoffs, and their bats have been like clubbing everybody to death, that's going to disappear, because all good pitching stops all good hitting. And in the playoffs, you get all good pitching, and they're not going to hit that way.
We know all about that statement very well after last season.
But and it carried us through. I mean,
there's no fact. There's no undeniable. It's an undeniable fact that Houston had better pitching than us. That there's
everybody.
An
they had better pitching than everybody. There's nobody in baseball had better pitching than them last year.
But like when we faced them, we were hitting the ball out of the yard on a nightly basis pretty frequently. But when we hit Houston, what was it? Game 2 or game 3?
Game 3.
Where we had an offensive outburst. And I think everyone was like, "Whoa, but Houston's got good pitching. What? Yeah, a broken clock's right twice a day. I mean, that's what that was. But the problem was it wasn't sustainable, because Houston was like, yeah, but we still have these guys. We're okay.
Right.
And then the other thing too about that game that you meant. I'm sorry for interrupting, but that game that you mentioned with that blowout that against Houston. I always remember when Bryce Harper took Al Bohm to the science, and you see how he's pitching. Like I think Pedro Martinez brought that up in the post game, saying that his mechanics were all screwed up and all that, like how his stretch was and all that. And that next pitch or the next pitch, or probably the pitch after that,
he was tipping his pitches. Yeah,
that's what it was. Yep. Thank you.
And like that's the thing is, like, Pedro Martinez, whatever you want to think of him, he's a very intelligent pitcher. And
he knows his stuff, man. He knows his
stuff.
Knows his stuff.
Right. He knows his stuff, but he also knows how to play those games. So, because he's done it himself, he's like, oh, I'm going to act like I'm tipping my pitches, but I'm not. I'm giving a false narrative. And, like, that's the difference is, you know, with the Phillies this year, like, Frank, you said you can't say that this team gave you an abundance of confidence. It maybe not in the last 3 weeks ago, but this last week or two,
oh yeah,
getting the Marlins.
They look like a different team. They look like a different team right now.
But getting the Marlins, I mean, I'll be honest. Going into that series with the Marlins, I'm like, if we lose this series, then
we're done.
Everything is going downhill. Because the Marlins always had our number, and they always kind of made us pay, and the fact that we were able to make them pay was kind of nice. And then to come home. And the first game against the Royals was egregious. But then it was like, it felt like someone went into the locker room. I'm not even sure who, but someone went into the locker room and said to everybody else, really? That's what we did? Really? That's who we are? Come on. I don't believe that for a second. And then everyone was like, yeah, he's right. Okay. And because they came in Saturday's game against the Royals, and they just said, we're going to light this place on fire. And Saturday, I was on post game with Al for Fighting's Final, and I got to say, when I was on there, I went and made a point to be on there because I said to Al, there was magic in the air tonight, and I hadn't felt that this season with the Phillies. Like, I haven't.
Yeah, no, they're a different team, and I mean, since the standing ovation, they're a completely different team.
Yep.
You know, because as I said, we did something very un-Philadelphian. We supported a guy who has played terribly. We don't do that here.
I'm gonna bring this up because you're bringing up the fans, and I wrote an article yesterday on the Nationals Philly series, and I said in the article, I said, you know, for all the grief that Philly fans give, what we understand is that tough times don't last, but tough people do. And we understand that Trey Turner's tough. We understand like a guy like Michael Lorenzen, who's, you know, been told his whole entire career he's not a good starting pitcher. He's not a starting pitcher at all. We've been told, you know, we had a guy like Weston Wilson who's been bounced around from one AAA team to another, not able to get the call up. When those guys get that monkey off their back, when Lorenzen gets a no-hitter and Weston Wilson gets validated by hitting a home run over the fence in his first major league at-bat, that stadium, this city, they embraced it. That people, when Lorenzen went out into the ninth inning, people stood up and didn't sit down until the game was over. That no one left the stadium.
Well, I'll tell you what
something. This fan base, I think, gets the wrong rap, and I think that the people that have given us that rap need to do a mea culpa.
Well, I mean, they're never going to do the mea culpa, Joe. They, you know, and we don't need them. I don't need them for validation. I really don't. As a fan of the Philadelphia team, I'm really proud of the way we educate and respond. And, you know, we all looked at Trey Turner, and I mean, this is my feeling, but I think this is the way I think the city feels about him. We all looked at the season that Trey Turner had, and there's no doubt in my mind that what was happening to Trey Turner wasn't for lack of effort. Okay, if it was lack of effort, nobody would have stood up and cheered for him. Okay, if it was the for who for what kind of season with Trey Turner, we would be calling him out on that. All right, that wasn't Trey Turner when he made those 3 errors in that one game. Looked like a player that was completely lost and frustrated. Not because he wasn't trying; he was trying to play. He just he had a mental block in his head, and we all recognize that. And thank God Jack Fritsch saw it, and said, look, this guy needs a boost, not a kick in the ass. He needs a boost. And that changed him. And I mean, the fact that the Philadelphia you couldn't get any other fan base to do that. You couldn't. No. You couldn't. There's not a fan. I'm sorry. Blow in the face. You can't get a fan base to do something like that for a guy who, if you just looked at his stuff on paper, you'd go, why am I cheering this guy?
Right.
But it's turned him around. It's absolutely turned him around. And it's turned the team around because they fed off that vibe. They went, wow, they're supporting this guy after he's struggling so hard. And you know what? We didn't turn on Castellanos last year either. Castellanos wasn't getting rained boos during the season last year. I mean, he was having a really hard year. But when you look at his baseball card, it was an anomaly. This is an anomaly. This year was an anomaly for Trey Turner. And we just supported him. We just said, okay, come on, Trey, we're behind you. We know you're a better player than this. And, he took that and said, okay, I'm good with that.
I will ask this, and then I'll add to what you're saying with an example about Michael Lorenzen. But I'll ask you this first. Frank, have you ever gotten a promotion at a job?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
When you got that promotion, it came with more money, came with more responsibility.
Right.
You also probably felt like it came with more pressure to live up to that.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you've made
things are expected of you.
Right. And sometimes within that pressure, you probably made some stupid mistakes that you knew were stupid mistakes after the fact. Like you knew that you were like, damn it.
Yeah,
I think Trey Turner got a promotion because he got the money he deserved. And I think people look at things like, oh, well, we're paying all this. Yeah, well, if you got a promotion, you had all that pressure put on you in a major market, you would feel pressure to succeed. And when it wasn't happening and you couldn't put your finger on it, then, yeah, you're going to feel dejected. You're going to feel, run down. But like you said, Frank, I mean, the guy has been smacking the ball like we all want him to. Now, understand something. Castellanos is doing what we expected him to do. Schwarber's turning it around.
Schwarber better turn it around big time because he's having a miserable year too. Even though he's got the home runs, 184 is not acceptable. It's just not.
I'm not. There's nothing I can say to. I like Schwarber, but there's nothing I can say to stand up for him with that batting average. I just can't.
No,
it is what it is.
It's Dave Kingman-esque.
Well, yeah, but who was it? Kitty, Tim Kotz was on the telecast last night. Yeah. He had said something like Schwarber reminds him of Gallo, Joey Gallo. That he's like, he can smack the ball and he's got pretty good fielding, but don't expect a man to bat for average. That's just not him. Yeah. And so it's like, yeah, okay, we get it, but it would be nice, at least if he could bat 200. And I mean, that seems like it's asking a lot out of Schwarber right now. But
he's got to get his ass above the Mendoza line. He definitely has to get above the Mendoza.
So with Michael Lorenzen, he came here and let's diagnose this a little bit. Lorenzen basically said that, and he was quoted, and I wrote this in the article. He's like, who has time to be tired when in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, the fans sound like this? Who has time to be tired? He's like, I wasn't tired. He's like, these people lifted me up. He's like, I screwed up in the first inning. He's like, my pitch count, inflated. He's like, I screwed up. And he's like, but this fan base is like nothing I've ever seen. And I think you are starting to see that more and more. Dabrowski doesn't need to sell other players on this city. Players are doing that for him. And I will say this, and for every Philly fan that's that's listening to my voice right now, I will say this. Not only did the Phillies fans and Philadelphia fans prove on a day in and day out basis that we are a part of sports. This is why this show and other shows like this speak with so much passion, because we feel connected, locked in to these teams. And not every city goes about doing that. They would rather come and go when they want and care about the team when they want. No. There's passion here. That's not a cliche or a corny little saying you put on a t-shirt. That is the truth. And if you haven't seen that in the last week, if you haven't seen that in the last year, because damn, like you look at the national media when they came here in October, they were like, man, this place is crazy. Like, yes, because we care and we're going to show it and we're going to put it out there. Now, look, are there boneheads out there? Yes, but
no,
you got to run in every litter. So like that's the way you got to look at it.
We have our share of runs.
Yeah. So this weekend is alumni weekend, and James, I know this might kind of. I know you look at like vault stuff, so like old time games and stuff, so you can still answer this question. But
sure,
Frank, 83 and 93, that we're honoring those Phillies teams this weekend. Tell me, you could pick one from both teams. Which player in your mind stands out the most out of from both teams, if you want to choose both?
All right, from the 83 team, it's John Denny. Because I mean, Carlton was the man. He was at the end of his run here. He was 11 years pitching in Philadelphia, but he was starting to run out of gas. And even though he had a good year in 83, you could see he wasn't the same Steve Carlton. And then he steps in, wins 19 games in the Cy Young. I mean, that literally propelled them in the playoffs was those two pitchers. The 93 team, I mean, there are two players on that team that made that team what it was, and that was Darren Dalton and Lenny Dykstra. And I mean, the rest of the team kind of followed suit. Kruk had a great year, but those two guys, like especially Dalton was incredible that year.
Yeah.
And what got the Phillies that year is what got us last year. We ran out of pitching. Mitch didn't have anything left.
Kruk said something during this homestand that, I mean, it caught me and it caught Tom McCarthy. And I want to ask you, considering you brought up Darren Dalton, Kruk compared JT to Darren, said he's a lot like Darren was. Do you agree with that?
Well, as far as on the field, yeah, he is.
Well,
I don't know.
Not many people could match Darren off the field.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he has that same gravitas in the clubhouse than Dalton did. Dalton was the boss of that team. He was the absolute king of that team, and I don't know if JT has that, but on the field, he's every bit what Dalton is. I mean, the fact that we have JT is amazing to me. To go from Chooch to JT, wow,
it's a blessing. It's a blessing.
Yeah,
it's a blessing.
There's not a better catcher. There's not a better catcher in baseball. There's not a better catcher in baseball.
And I'll say this too. Last night I was watching the game and I heard we had Stubbs in with JT. I'm like, what team dresses two catchers?
Yeah, really.
In the same lineup, because you would think that would be a detriment to base running, because if you have two catchers, you have two slow guys. Not team.
Those two. No, not those they steal bases. Yeah, the one bunts for base hits, and the other one steals bases.
Yeah, I've never heard of a catcher bunting for a base hit, but Stubbs does it.
Let me tell you, Bob Boone could never be confused with the speed that these two guys have. I love Bob Boone, but Bob Boone ran with blocks on his feet.
So, James, I'll ask you. I know that both these errors are a bit before your time, but
Yep.
I know you're a sports historical savant. So I'm pretty sure you have an answer for this. Pick your best player or your favorite player from the 83 and 93 teams.
Let's see. I'm not sure about 83, so I guess I could say, was Ron Reed on that team in 83?
Yes, he was.
Ron Reed was
Okay.
in the broadcast booth last night too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would say Ron Reed for 83 and 93. Man, I mean, I had to say I had the privilege enough to interview Kevin Stocker during that World Series run last year, and he was a hell of a guy. I mean, he was a great interview. Man, I mean, there's so many. I mean, I was watching that 93 High Hopes yearbook when the Phillies had a rain delay a couple weeks ago. But yeah, I mean, it's either like you guys mentioned it with Dalton or John Kruk or even Eisenreich too. I saw him on camera last night too. I didn't even know it was him. So I guess I got to say, I'm gonna go with Larry Anderson. I think Larry Anderson is one of the guys I still love as a broadcaster, and also as his storytelling is phenomenal. I listened to him last night with that round table, and it was pretty funny stuff that they were talking about.
You can just imagine what he's like off air.
Yeah,
really telling the stories.
Yeah,
I mean,
it just seems like a
not having
like a
producer going, wrap it up, Larry, wrap it up.
Yeah,
but
seems like a great guy too.
Joe, what's forgotten about the 93 season because of for 2/3 of that season, actually longer than that, Lenny Dykstra hit 400.
Mm-hmm.
Lenny Dykstra was, he was literally flirting with hitting 400 that year. It fell off at the end of the year, but that's, it happens.
John Kruk has been quoted as the saying, he's like, I have lost batting average leads in the team clubhouse to two men, and two men I'm proud to have lost that lead to, Lenny Dykstra and Tony Gwynn.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean that's a high praise, and for me. So the interesting thing, there's a couple tidbits I found out about last night. So you brought up Larry Anderson, James. Larry Anderson's the only player that was on both teams. He was on 83 and 93.
Yeah. Right.
So that's the interesting. I did not know that. And another little known tidbit is Ron Reed played professional basketball. He was drafted to the Detroit Pistons.
Yes, he was.
He played two seasons with the Pistons. He was drafted in the third round when I guess the NBA had a third round. That was well before my time. But my two players really kind of go hand in hand. From the 83 team, I got to pick Schmidt. Michael Jack, I can recall in my childhood at 83, I was only 3.
Well, I watched his whole career. I had season tickets on the 300 level, right on third base.
But I grew up with the soundtrack of Harry Callis saying, "There goes another one, Michael Jack Schmidt," and I'm like, I would start to say it would be the cliche, like the kid throwing a baseball against the wall and trying to catch it, and I'm playing like I'm Michael Jack Schmidt, even though he was a third baseman, not an outfielder. But I would do the Harry Callis impression as a kid, and that's the only name I really knew. Right. At least from that era. And then when 93 hit, I was a big John Kruk guy. I was a big John Kruk guy because he was like the everyman. He was the guy that you thought, if this guy could play, I could play. You felt like Lenny was so cut up, you were like, I'm not him. Dalton was so beautiful, you're like, I'm not him. Kurt Schilling was so perfect, I'm not him. And while saying Mitchie Poo was so crazy, you're like, I'm definitely not him.
Right.
But John Kruk was the everyman. And
him and Incaviglia were that guy.
Yeah.
Him and Incaviglia were those guys.
Yeah.
Kip Pattison too. And Bill Thompson.
Yeah. And like that's the thing is like that everyman, that guy that could perform at such a high level like Kruk did, and then kind of be like, yeah, I'm gonna go throw back some beers. I mean, he was Stone Cold Steve Austin.
You know what?
There's sometimes
I look at Kruk and go, you know, I think he's too stupid to know the difference. I swear to God.
I think he'd agree with you. Honestly, I think he'd tend to agree with you.
Yeah,
I'm not completely saying he would be like, yeah.
It's not an indictment of the guy. I mean, it's not a bad thing.
No.
He was who he was, you know. But sometimes I look at him and go, I can't believe he just said that.
Well, look. I think I remember him saying a couple times on the telecast. He's like, "Well, Tom, it's baseball. It's not rocket science. You don't have to be the smart guy." That's why he's like, that's why I thrived. I didn't have to be the smart guy. I just had to be the guy that could hit a baseball. That's all I needed to be. And like that's where, that's where I think like someone like Kruk look, I was 13. I was in my teenage years. So of course you want to know what can I do as I grow up, and you get older and you look at, I never wanted to play baseball because I never really could with my vision, but the idea that this guy could, and I mean, look, John Kruk is a big WWE fan, and so, I will pay him the highest compliment that he was Stone Cold before Stone Cold. He was the one that was seen cracking beers and drinking, all of them on camera well before Stone Cold was. So if anything, he ought to go and see Steve Austin and say, you stole my gimmick, buddy. But
gimmick infringement.
It's nice to see and nice to hear some of these guys come back. And something that John Kruk said last night, he said when he was working for ESPN, he'd get have to take off for the week of Alumni Weekend.
Yeah. I heard this last night.
And he basically said, Joe Morgan basically said, didn't you do that last year? He's like, yeah. I they have it every year. And Joe Morgan was like, they have it every year?
It wasn't Joe Morgan. It was like, because Joe Morgan was alumni. No, it was the other guy. Who was the guy he was talking about? It wasn't Joe Morgan. He said the guy's name. I can't remember what the name was.
Yeah.
No, it was a player.
But
but it wasn't Joe Morgan. But the guy was like,
when he spoke with the guy was like, no other organization does what the Phillies does, and this goes back to the fan base. When the ownership shows respect to the players, how can we not? And I think this is where, like, some of the disgruntledness with, and maybe even some of the concern with the Flyers. We've talked about this. Like, we hope that they point the ship in the right direction, the ownership and the management and all of that.
Yeah.
Because we want them to care about the players so that we can care about the players.
Sure. Well, we want them to care about the players the way we care about them.
Right. Absolutely. And I think
and it doesn't always feel that way. Like,
No.
I think the fan base of the Sixers cares way more about the Sixers than Josh Harris does.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's why sometimes our frustration about the Sixers gets very heated, because we're like, damn it, we got an absentee father and we can't do anything about it. Like, we have an absentee father that
he's going to be more absentee. He's going to be more absentee now that he has a big toy to play with.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so get this. I had brought this up to Cuz a week or two ago. So after the trade deadline, the Guardians had made some really skeptical moves, the ownership, and it really pissed the fan base off. And then about 2 or 3 days later, there was an article released in the local Cleveland newspapers saying that the ownership was thinking about selling. I'm like, well, Josh Harris should jump on that. He'll have all 4 sports matched up. Have a baseball, basketball, hockey, and football. I'm like, why not?
And he's got soccer in Europe. He owns 2 teams overseas.
So I mean, wish I could have that guy's kind of money. But
well, I mean, it's not just him. It's a hedge fund. It's a literally a sports hedge fund.
It's a stock thing.
Yeah. Well, we're going to transition a little bit into the Eagles, and there were a couple things. The Philadelphia Eagles. The team that's playing tonight against the Baltimore Ravens. And
you mean life begins tonight? Life begins tonight.
Oh yes, I get to hear football once again. I get to hear football once again.
Yes, you get to be born again.
So
born again
one
hard.
of the things. Now I might not hear Jalen Hurts playing because from what I've heard, Jalen and Lamar may not be playing tonight, but that's fine.
Oh no.
But that's kind of what I wanted to lead in with. So there have been reports coming from camp, and I want to get kind of like your concern level and maybe even your solution to the idea that Marcus Mariota has been sucking at camp. Frank, are you worried? And do we need to look elsewhere for a backup quarterback?
No. We had Gardner Minshew last year. I think Mariota's an upgrade. I really do. Mariota will do what he needs to do if he's called upon to do it. I mean, he might be sucking because he's in a completely different system than he was in before. All right. Mm-hmm. And training camp really doesn't mean a damn thing to me. You're going to see him play in the preseason. And look, Marcus Mariota has flaws, but he has skills too. And really, you'd have to be brain dead not to be able to utilize the skill position players that the Eagles have. I mean, those guys could cover a multitude of flaws. The offensive line, the wide receivers, the tight end, and the running backs can all make Mariota competent. All he has to do is be a game manager when he goes in. He doesn't have to light the world on fire, and I think he's capable of doing that. I'm not worried about that.
The one guy,
and he's a backup.
The one thing I hope that Marcus Mariota doesn't do is repeat the sins of another backup quarterback, former starter that came in, athletic quarterback that came in here and called us the dream team in Vince Young. Don't do that stuff. Like that.
No, he's never been vocal like that. Marcus Mariota's always been a background guy.
Well, I have been a fan of Marcus Mariota since he was in college. I followed him in college. And I could say the same thing for Vince Young. So, I followed both careers. And I could tell you the biggest difference with Marcus is that he commands attention from the players that are on the field with him. And that's different. He doesn't, not to say that he's going to command the attention away from Jalen, but when he's called upon, he's going to command the attention from the players on the field, which is good. I think it's invaluable.
I think when he broke into the league, he got drafted by the wrong team.
Who are you kidding?
No, but I mean, it was a bad situation for him. I mean, I didn't think we ever had a shot at getting him because we had to go up too high to get him. But landing where he landed was not a good situation for him. He probably would have made
James,
it better.
Are you worried? Are you worried about Marcus? Yeah. Do we need to cut bait? No.
Well, I can tell you a long story short. I had the privilege enough to watch that NFL quarterback series when it was Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and obviously
I haven't. I'm going to do a deep dive and kind of binge watch it. So
I binge watched all 8 episodes that night because the Phillies had a fucking a delay. Basically, the game was rained out. Excuse me, but there was a thing. It was towards the end of the maybe 3rd or 4th episode when Marcus Mariota was being benched for Desmond Ridder. I gotta get his name right, Desmond Ridder. And after that, he actually left the team. I mean, he went AWOL. He didn't come back. He just said, screw you guys, I'm going home, basically. But I don't think it's going to be the same case here because like he knows he's going to be the backup. It's not going to be a big thing. But if the thing about with Mariota that I think we all know where he is at this point, and I think he's just going to be where he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be anything special. I mean, hopefully we just see him towards the end of the season when we have everything locked up, kind of like what we were supposed to have with Foles, and last time we checked, Foles won the Super Bowl. So I don't want that happening again. But at the same time, I mean, hopefully we'll have Jalen Hurts fully healthy for the playoffs and the regular and everything in between, and just see Mariota in the last couple games towards the end of the season. That's all I care about. But I don't think he's going to have. I'm not going to be that much worried. I mean, I got a good feeling about.
There's bigger concerns on the Eagles than backup.
Yeah, and we're going to get to some of those. So
linebacker, safety.
The one thing that I kind of took away. So I agree with Frank. I don't get much out of training camp because I feel like you're not trying to go 120 as far as speed.
Well, the way I'm going to tell you, I mean, I've been around a long time, and Sirianni runs a different camp than any other Eagles coach ever ran.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's genius in what he does because I don't know whether you two guys have noticed, but the last two seasons, the Eagles have come through the season without a whole lot of injuries. Where other teams when they like it devastated San Francisco, injuries killed that team at the end of the year. Yep. And I mean, if Jalen hadn't taken that one hero moment in Chicago, he'd have played the whole season. He probably would have won 15 games. Yeah. But you look at Sirianni has done something that the other teams are starting to copy, and that's usually what happens when a team gets good. That people copy you, and he says, "Look, guys, I know you know how to play the game. Preseason isn't about. It's just getting you in tune. We're not going to beat anybody up." And they go into the season, and they're not sore because he knows come the end of December, everybody's beat up. Well, if you got a little bit more step in your legs, you can blame that on the training camp because you didn't kill them.
There's some credence to what you're saying there in many ways. And one thing I can say is that during the training camp, I would say about 2 weeks ago, they were all being interviewed. It was like the first couple days of training camp. And Nick was being interviewed, and he was brought up about, you guys still thinking about the Super Bowl. Because I know that's then, this is now. We're trying to get ourselves ready. We're trying to get ourselves mentally ready, physically ready for the Patriots. He didn't say the Ravens. He said the Patriots. Yeah, he's not worried about the preseason because he feels like he's just working out some of the mechanics. He's just making sure these guys are warm. It's like warming up a pitcher in the bullpen.
The Eagles did not play well last preseason. They didn't.
But did it matter?
No,
but did it matter?
You didn't watch the Eagles play. You were watching the backups play. All they were looking for was people to fill the bench. He knew what he had in his starting lineup. Like, you're not going to see the starters very much in preseason. I wouldn't mess with the offensive line at all. I would keep those guys. Just they're going to get their work when they do the team meet with Cleveland. But I mean, like, a quarter, maybe 2 series a game, I'm all right with that. Those guys know what to do. So the defense, I think the defensive line is going to need a little work because they have to get their rotation down and their timing down because it's changed a little bit. But what I'm concerned about is linebacking. I mean, we don't know. I mean, Nakobe Dean may be great, but we don't know that. And Blankenship is what Blankenship is. But now you're trusting the other rookie they got from, who was it, Illinois? Is that where they got that kid?
Yes.
Yeah, you're going to trust a kid to do that job too. So
here's my thing. So before we move on to the linebacker and Nakobe Dean, I wanted to let everybody know that if you want to go to an away game for the Eagles or even go to a home game and go to a really kick-ass tailgate, check out our friends over at phillysportstrips.com. They have all the events and ticket packages and travel packages to go to all the away games for the Eagles season. They are the place to go. If you want to go away and cheer on the Birds, you want to go and have a great time, Vince and the crew over there at Philly Sports Strips, they know how to do it right. And you'll be first class all the way. Check out phillysportstrips.com. Book your trip today, especially those Flamin' Yon sandwiches that James can't get enough of. So the idea with Nakobe Dean, and I'm gonna bring James a little bit down to earth. So he has an ankle injury.
I understand that.
What are you worried? Are you worried? This is your guy. This is your Bulldogs and your Bull Eagles. These are your guys.
I'm representing Nakobe Dean today, but mind you too. No, I'm not too worried. I think the one thing I take out of it is that when the injury happened, I think I was a little bit skeptical about how the injury occurred, and then I found out on Sunday. My dad texted me. He says, actually, he told me rather. He says, "Dude, we just got Miles Jack and Zach Cunningham." So that's when I know. I was like, I'm not too worried about that. But there's something about that kind of concerns me a little bit. Not for Nakobe Dean's sake, but someone brought it up on WIP a couple of days ago. I think someone said that like Nakobe Dean's going to be basically on watch, like, and Miles Jack and Zach Cunningham are going to take his job. But I'm thinking, no, that's not the case at all. The reason why we brought in those players is because we need depth at the linebacker core. We need depth. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be a big concern. If it is a big concern towards the beginning of the season, then I'll start to worry. But like preseason shows you, Merrill says 100 times, and I totally agree with him. Says that this means absolutely less than nothing. It's only mixes and matches at this point. If he's ready to go by the regular season opener, that's all I care about.
Well, this is how he's doing what he does. Last year they needed a defensive tackle. Well, he didn't bring in one; he brought in two, in case one didn't work. Right. So he did it this year.
Always good to have a spare.
Well, he has the room in the budget to do it. He has the room in the budget to do it. So, I think I really want to see Miles Jack get the playing time next to Nakobe Dean, because I think Miles Jack could really help Nakobe Dean. I really do. Cunningham, he's a solid player. He's nothing spectacular. He's just a solid linebacker. He's not a big glitzy guy, but he does his job. Miles Jack has a little more glitz to him, but he's really smart. And I can't believe he was available.
So, if TK were here,
led the team last year with sacks with Pittsburgh too, Miles.
Yeah. But if TK were here, he would tell me, okay, Miles Jack was a former Jaguar, so Joe knows all about him. I'm like, so Miles Jack was a good draft pick, and he did really well with the Jaguars and did really well with the Steelers. The thing about Miles Jack is he's kind of the opposite of Zach Cunningham. Zach Cunningham is his own read linebacker. Miles Jack is more of a blitz-heavy kind of linebacker. Right. The only big problem that Jack has had, if he's had any criticisms on him, is that in open field he's terrible with pursuit. He can't get off of a block very well to pursue if it's like a run or if it's a screen pass. That's been his big bugaboo. But look,
so he's an A-gap linebacker. Is what he is. He's an A-gap linebacker.
He's an A-B gap kind of guy. Right. And I think that's why Howie brought in the guys he brought in. He brought one to play in certain schemes and then another to play in the other schemes, because one can do better at the other.
Well, that Joe, that tells me, I didn't think about it from that perspective, but that tells me everything I need to know about Nakobe Dean, because now you have a guy who's an A-gap guy. You don't have to have Nakobe Dean, who's undersized, play the A-gap. he can be the
Right.
pursuit, and he can definitely go sideline to sideline. You
Right.
know, so now you got your A gap fillers, and the Kobe Dean can roam. That's encouraging.
Zach,
That's encouraging.
And Zach Cunningham is a zone read, so I would assume if it's like a 3rd and 8, you're going to be looking at Zach Cunningham coming on for Miles Jack because they're going to play a zone read on that, so that way they make sure that if there's any screen pass or underthrow slant
It's
across
covered.
the middle, like a 5 slant, that it Zach can pick it up with Deem, or they can have Deem play spy off of somebody in the backfield, and like that's the thing
or they can send them on a blitz,
right?
Because Dean's got the speed to do that. I'm really excited to see what Dean can do this year. Really excited to see.
With Zach, same here. With Zach, he gives you. He's not going to blitz. He's not going to give you the same fury that a Miles Jack would. Miles Jack runs with his head down.
He's a stay-at-home guy. Right.
Yeah, Miles Jack is a run with his head down kind of guy, and like that can be a plus and a negative depending on the circumstances. But I was kind of in agreement with you, Frank, is that I was kind of surprised he was available. I was kind of surprised both were available, but it doesn't surprise me that how we were to find these guys sitting on a couch going, "Hey, you want to come play for us?" Like
you could find a safety like that
with Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph. Well, I wouldn't be too surprised, Frank, in the sense that, first off, I really want to see what Blankenship brings to the table. Mm-hmm. I really have high hopes for that guy. I really do.
I think he's not a flash in the pan.
I just really hope it's not a flash in the pan, because when he picked off Aaron Rodgers, I was like, whoa. I'm like, okay, that got my attention. But if it's a flash in the pan and you're going to be – now, one of the safeties, and I know what I'm going to get groans when I say this name, but one of the safeties that I've heard has really looked good coming into camp is Kayvon Wallace.
Right.
Yeah. And look, I know he's not in the right home about. I get it. But let's see what he does in the preseason. That's what I'm really going to watch tonight's game about. I want to see the names that pop.
Yeah, that's what I'm watching tonight. Actually, the whole preseason, I'm watching linebacker and safety play. That's what I'm watching.
Yep, same here.
Well, I mean, I remember, I think it was like his rookie season, Cam Jurgens. The guy who does the commentary for the preseason games. He basically was like, this guy is just a beast. I'm like, well, I'm looking forward to this guy. I'm like, okay, let's do this. So I'm looking for the same things. Maybe not on the offensive line front, but on that linebacker safety kind of front. I'm even looking because I'm curious what secondary, as far as corners, are going to show out. Because you're not going to be relying on Slay and Bradbury forever. So you got to see who's next in line and who's going to be coming up the ranks. Because that's where I think if an injury happens, we're going to really be sunk. Is that if an injury happens to Bradbury, Maddox, or Slay, it changes the dynamic of that secondary. We were lucky.
Maddox is going to get hurt. He always gets hurt. He always gets banged up during the year.
I mean, because it matters, because if you remember last year when Maddox got hurt, we were blessed to have someone like CJ jump into that role and be able to fill it well. We don't have that this year. So
no, we don't.
It's kind of now. I'm going to raise this question. In the NFC East, we've already covered the Dallas Cowboys and the debacle that's going on in camp there. And I spoke with a gentleman this past week who lives in Dallas, who's a Dallas fan, who's on another sports podcast. And I asked him, I said, did you hear about this? Like, how much news? And he said he didn't hear anything about it, but he's not too surprised. And I'm like, well, that tells me all I need to know. Now, in the NFC East, we've got more drama for your mama. So Ron Rivera went on record saying that Eric Bieniemy was being too hard on
He
his
was being mean.
offensive players.
He was being mean to
Too
them
hard.
offensive players.
I gotta ask: have we gotten into a society where if a coach comes in and grabs you by your face mask and tells you to do your job correctly, that would be wrong? Frank.
Excuse me, Coach. I get paid $3 million a year. Get your hand off my face, man.
So, do you think Ron Rivera should have even said anything? I mean, right now
I think
are,
Ron Rivera should have walked into the offensive room, the offensive meeting, and told those guys to shut the hell up and get in line. This is your offensive coach. You don't like it? There's the door. We don't have to pay you.
I mean, a lot of people think that Ron Rivera is on the hot seat and that Eric Bieniemy is the next in line. Now,
well, it's too soon to tell that because you don't know what Josh Harris is going to do.
Yeah, you know, who you telling? We all know. We know all about that. But like, here's my feeling too. If you're an offensive player and you got Eric Bieniemy telling you what to do, that man's got 2 Super Bowl rings. You shut your mouth. He's got 2 Super Bowl rings.
I have kind of a prediction about what's going to happen with Washington, at least initially. First of all, he's going to change the name. He's absolutely going to change the name.
So. I sure hope so.
He's going to change the name. He's definitely going to change the name. And secondly, you know what you're going to see in Washington? You're going to see. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Something weird in my sound. You're going to see a football version of Tank. You're going to see a football version of the Sixers Tank there. Because don't laugh. Don't laugh, James. He's going to do it.
No, I believe you.
Assets too? Is he going to sell off assets too, like Chase Young and?
Okay. Yeah, no, he'll because he'll tell his GM, whoever he hires, because it's not going to be the guy that's in there now. He's going to tell him, look, the guys that are on the field now aren't going to be playing for us 5 years from now. Get as many draft picks for these guys as you can. Let's stock the book. And I mean, he's going to do it. I know he's going to do it. And Washington will be the armpit of the division for 5 years. But then, if he hires the right coach, they'll be a very, very, very good team. They'll wind up like the Sixers. They'll be a perennial contender. I don't know if they'll have the shit to get over the edge, but that's what he's going to do because he saw where it worked. He saw it worked here.
Speaking of an armpit of a team, the New York Football Giants have.
They're not an armpit. They're not an armpit.
To me, they are, but they're smelly and they really are annoying.
That's different than being an armpit of a team.
Okay, a wart. All right.
Yeah.
So
okay. Yes.
They're a wart.
Yes, they're a wart.
So, Saquon Barkley. First off, we've gone down the road of the high-priced, overpriced Daniel Jones. Saquon Barkley was going to be franchise tagged, but then threatened to hold out. Now he's under a 1-year contract for $11 million. I got to ask, does Saquon have any kind of, skin in the game by doing that for the rest of his career? I mean, 1-year deal, $11 million. It sure looks like the Giants are kind of halfway out the door with their commitment to him. Why is he like what is this going to do for him and his career? Like what is the incentive going forward?
Joe, he's symptomatic of the rest of the problem for NFL running backs. They just don't have the value that they had 15 years ago. They just don't. The bean counters said, running backs are good for maybe 5 years. After that, they're done. They're shot. You try to push them out to 8, and they become injury riddled because they just get the shit kicked out of them all the time. So he is what he is. He's a running back, and he doesn't have 3 years, $32 million price tag on his head. He's just not. He's not that kind of guy because they know
he will never get a big contract.
No running back is ever getting a big contract on their second contract or third contract. It's not happening. I mean, these guys are smoking dope. They're smoking dope. If their agents are standing there telling them this is what I can get you, then their agents are lying to them, because the NFL owners understand how spare parts are, and running backs, as exciting as they are spare parts in the NFL now. It's a passing game.
So do you think Howie Roseman's ahead of the curve by getting four running backs?
Oh my God, yeah. Way ahead of the curve. Way ahead of the curve. Because all of our running backs don't total what Saquon Barkley's getting paid this year, which enabled us to pay for positions that are way more worth it. You know, cornerback, offensive lineman, defensive lineman. We paid those positions because that's where the bread and butter is. You know, you can find good running backs everywhere.
So James, I'll ask you, with the Giants and their issues with Saquon and their money issues, and it's shocking to me that they have the stock exchange in New York and they can't get their money issues right. But the Giants, the Giants and the Commanders, and then the Cowboys. All these different dramas going on in the NFC East, and you looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, are the Philadelphia Eagles just cruising in this division in your mind?
Yeah, for sure. You know,
you mean cruising record wise?
Well, cruising just overall, like
cruise control,
mentally, physically.
I think they have very good, smooth, off the field water. Yeah. You know, I mean, but I'm sorry, and I hate to say this, but the Cowboys are a friggin' good team. You know, they're going to be a pain in our ass. They're going to
Joe,
you have to.
I agree that they're a good team. I agree they're a good team. I agree that they have good individual players. I just think they're a train wreck.
Okay, they may be a train wreck, but they're players. They're a train wreck that's going to win like 12 games.
And just have not a good team.
Joe, they're a train wreck that's going to win like 12 games. Okay? That's a train wreck that can wreck you. You know?
I don't know.
You got to respect them. Look,
No, I respect. See, I respect players.
You have to respect that. Yeah, you have to respect the talent that they have on the field. You know what I know will happen to the Cowboys? It'll happen because it happens all the time. They're completely undisciplined. Okay.
Well, yeah.
They have a lot of talent, and just like pitching in baseball, that undisciplined nature comes back to bite you in the ass when you're playing in a playoff format. They will not succeed. They are not built to succeed to get to the Super Bowl as much as the Dallas fans want them to.
That's where, like, I say, like, I respect the talent they have, but it's the discipline, it's the, you know, the out for me kind of mentality some of those players have on that team.
That's, Joe, fish thinks from the head down. That's Jerry Jones. I'm out for me, I'm out for me, I'm out for me. And unless he hires himself another Jimmy Johnson, he's never going to win again. But he won't hire another Jimmy Johnson because he likes to be the guy. Okay? He can't have somebody who works under him be the guy. Instead of just kicking back and relaxing and basking in the glow of win after win after win, because they would. Trust me, if they got the right coach in there, we will rue the day, because Dallas has the talent to beat anybody, including us.
But out of the coaches that you may know of right now, what coach could that be? Because I don't.
Let me tell you something.
A savior.
I was panic stricken when Peyton was on the table, because if Peyton had gone to Dallas, that would have been a bad day for us, Joe. If Sean Payton had gone to Dallas, that would have been a really, really, really bad day for us.
Yeah, I know.
I
was checking something.
Do you think that Denver? See, here's the thing with Peyton. I don't disagree with you. He's a great offensive mind. I just think in his age, he's just gotten a little too arrogant.
No,
you
know what?
Know if arrogance
Sean Payton would look at that.
Content.
Sean Payton would look at that roster that Dallas has. the incredible defense that they have, because they have a really good defense. And
Probably
they have
one of the better
positions
defenses he would have ever had. He never had a defense like that in New Orleans.
I'm going to tell you something. They're probably the second best defense in football. The Niners being number one as far as I'm concerned. Niners have the best defense in football. I would say Dallas is probably number two. And Dallas made their defense that way because of us. That is reactionary to what we put on the field offensively. And Sean Payton is leaps and bounds so much better than McCarthy. It's not even funny.
Right. Well, that's Sean not Payton, even a debate.
Okay, well, if you put a Sean Payton in charge of a team with that many weapons, you know what you're going to get? You're going to get 14, 15 wins a year is what you're going to get. And we're going to have to eat their crap for 4 years, because that's what they would do. That's what they would do with the talent pool that they have. That's what they would do. We are so blessed that McCarthy is the head coach of that team, and that Jarrah is still the owner of the Cowboys, running everything. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to us, because he can't get out of his own way, and McCarthy's too stupid to get out of his own way.
That's for sure, and that's why, like, that's the reason why I feel like they're a train wreck, because you hit the nail on the head. The fish stinks from the head down, and it's like,
right,
when you got a owner and a coach that can't get out of their own way, that's basically saying they're willing to stand in front and watch the train crash.
Yeah, well, that's because
about it.
You know what Jerry Jones is? Jerry Jones is the guy that likes the shiny toy, and his offense is a shiny toy. Okay.
Yeah.
And McCarthy doesn't know how to play with a shiny toy. Obviously, because he couldn't get more than one Super Bowl with probably the second best quarterback of our generation in Green Bay. So I'm not, as long as McCarthy's running that team, I'm okay. And as long as Jerry is still in control of the front office, I'm okay.
So, James, do you have the confidence in this Eagles team for the next 2 or 3 seasons, or at least for this season? Let's just stay in the now.
Right.
That they are going to be mentally, physically, and statistically stronger than everyone else in their division.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could say the one thing I take out of it is that the one thing that really kind of, like, I don't see any team in either Dallas, Washington, or either the Giants, like, that's going to be like a big concern. I mean, obviously it's going to be like NFC East teams are going to, like, fight for whatever is right until they're blue in the face. But I think what the Eagles really need to do is that if they want to go in full control like they did last year, like, they have to have a real supportive base. I mean, the base that they have is, like, basically the best in all of football. I'm going to say right now. But the thing that I take out of it too is that if Dallas is going to be, I mean, I know Dallas is going to be a pain in our backside for as long as Jarrett can take them to. But the Giants, I don't see much about the Giants. I don't see much of Washington. Washington's going to be in tanking mode, like they did with the Sixers, hard to believe, 10 years ago.
Don't sleep on the Giants, James. Don't sleep on the Giants.
Yeah,
they got the right coach. They got the right coach.
I mean, they do.
Well, I won't disagree with that.
The right personnel.
I'd almost say, we talk about Peyton, and kind of like he would have been the best fit. What would you have thought if the guy who's the coach for the Giants would have been the coach for the Cowboys? I mean, that would have been even more scary.
Same thing. Well, yeah, no, that's look. I want to get some sleep tonight. Don't put that in my head. Okay?
Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying, like, that's a scary proposition, because if you look at the talent on the Giants and you look at the talent on the Cowboys, it's like apples and oranges. But before we go, I wanted to just give a small promotion. So I am a new commissioner for the Mayor's Office of People with Disability, and this November, when you go to the ballot to put your vote in, Mayor's Office of People with Disability is on the ballot. It's to be voted into the Philadelphia Charter. Also to change some of the language on the charter from handicapped to disabled or to people with disabilities. It's important to kind of keep the Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities around because we are trying to make Philadelphia one of the most accessible cities for all disabled people. There's 1.6 million people in the city. About 15% of that are disabled. And so that is a high enough percentage where that population should not be marginalized by any means. So voting in the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities into the Philadelphia Charter, voting it in permanently it would help so many people and would help advance what Philadelphia looks like going forward. I'm not forcing anybody to vote. I'm just here to urge people to, when they go out to the voting boxes, to look for that agenda and to vote it into law. It's something that's very close, near and dear to my heart, and I'm hoping to enact change in the near future in the city. I'm actually we're going to be having a small meet and greet with the mayor and the future mayoral candidates in the coming month. So it's very exciting. A lot of change coming. So if you remember on November voting to vote for the mayor's office of people with disability, and I'll continue to remind every once in a while just so people can remember when it comes closer to November. But that's going to do it for our show today. I really want to thank Frank Finnegan, James Scorza, Damon Salim, and we are the Pattison Ave Phanatics. I am Joe Marks, and let's go Phillies, and let's go Birds.
Let's go Phils.
Let's go Birds, and let's go Phillies. See you next week, guys.
Yep.